Hi, my name is April Nicolas, and welcome to the Just Do You Summit. This summit is about looking within yourself for answers instead of outside and creating happiness, love, and wealth. And joining me today is Dianne Bischoff James, a transformational life coach, speaker, and author of the Real Brass Ring book. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Great. Now, why I'm doing this summit? I'm doing this summit because I've had a journey where I needed to realign, reboot. My whole life was turned upside down to be right side up, so to speak. And I've shared with Dianne that finding her was almost miraculous because we shared a journey very similar to each other. And she's in the same route of sharing the message of healing. And so I found myself on her website, and here we are together. And I think she has a message that's going to really benefit a ton of people. And so here we are, and we are going to ask you some questions, but I want you to tell me a little bit about your journey so that our listeners and viewers can know you a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I'm a life reboot expert. That's what I call myself.
Okay.
I had an experience where I was going for what I thought we were supposed to do, which is go for the American dream.
Yes.
The stuff, the money. I had a house across from the lake. I had my own business, and I was working 24/7, trying to raise kids and get all the goods, try to get more and more,
Right.
more and more possessions. And that's what I was told would make me happy. But what happened at about 40, I had this weird synchronistic event where two people in the same week told me to visit Sonia Choquette. And she's an internationally known psychic now, but back then she was just evolving and had her first book out, and she was seeing people in her home. So I decided to do that on my 38th birthday, actually. And so I expected her to say, you keep going, girl. You're going to rock on. You're going to just, do this life right. And instead, for an hour, I like to think she completely undressed me.
Right.
And she said, pretty much, wrong guy, wrong passion area, wrong career, wrong location, wrong everything. Oh, and by the way, I was 190 pounds, so I was also grossly overweight. And she also said, I'm going to tell you something other people won't ever share with you. She said, but you're chronically and clinically depressed, which was true because I was sucking down Prozac like there was no tomorrow. So I had pursued all the trappings, and it wasn't until I was outed by a psychic that I finally had this message come across, which is, if you don't hurry up and grab at the real brass ring, it's all going to be too late. And that's the final word she said to me. And I took it very, very seriously. It became the title of the book, The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. And over the next 10 years, I fixed everything. I lost the weight. She said, become an actor, an author, a teacher, and a healer, and in that order. And that's pretty much what happened. I didn't know what I was going to write about. I thought I was going to write about marketing because I was a marketing guru. But instead, I started writing these ooey gooey stories about how do you take a life and transform it while you have children in tow, while you have to keep yourself together, while you have to pay bills, and also how do you deconstruct a relationship that just wasn't heartfelt without really hurting anybody, which is really difficult. I call it a healthy divorce. I mean, they're never fun and they're never happy, but they can be healthy, and they can be healthy for everybody. And so I had the opportunity to start acting, even though I was grossly overweight and not practiced and probably not even talented, but I was pretty lucky. And so now I am able to do films. In fact, tomorrow I have an audition for another major motion picture, and I just auditioned for a movie with Will Ferrell like last week, and I've done movies with Paul Sorvino, and I do a lot of commercials. So she was right about the actor. I was able to take that from zero at 40 and become an actor now. And also I wrote the book, and I've been able to tour all over the country, and I put together what I call the shortcuts for happy living. And because as a business executive, I always used to hear one question. They used to say, okay, just give me the bottom line. Tell me what I need to know. And so I'm like, okay, I wanted the same for me. She left me with, oh, by the way, your life is a mess. Trash it and start over at 40 with no plan, no information as to how to do that. So that was tough. It was really difficult. So I decided to put together a program for myself. Okay, how am I going to do that? So I wrote down the 14 shortcuts for happy living and used them every day. And that's how I developed the course to change my life. It also is part of the program that I use now for life rebooting, which is powerful transformation, how to get outrageous abundance. And I'm able to coach people and help them on how to redo the inside so that manifest what you want on the outside.
Right. That's why I was saying, I was reading through some of the stuff and I was remembering this, trying to form the questions for you on an interview, that when you're in the midst of this storm, which is what you would call our previous life, you can't really see clearly, right? You think it's going fine, but it's not. And then you come to a halt. And so I'm saying for those who are watching us right now, they may not know they're in the midst of a storm. How did you know that you were in those blind spots looking back after you saw Sonia? Like if once she said everything's wrong and you look back, do you see the red flags then? Like scanning it?
It's a great question. You see, I think the way the universe is working is that when you're off track, you're not getting a lot of help.
Right.
And when you're on track, I do believe the universe, angels, committee, whatever you want to call them, but your ability to connect with the other side is fully engaged and supported, which is when things come in very easily. And I found everything to be difficult. Everything was hard. But most importantly, what I didn't know back then is that the body does not lie.
Right.
Body is not able to lie. It's the closest connection we have to source and to the universe and to our heart center and to our soul and spirit. And so the body is our communication vessel. Now, I was in so much pain every day that almost every area of my body was broken. So in addition to being really overweight and just working 24/7 and eating kind of whatever and being completely obsessed with food, everything hurt. So I went to the doctor actually, and they said, if you don't do something, you're literally going to be in a wheelchair probably by the time you're, 55. And my arm wasn't working. I couldn't lift it any higher than this. And my everything was falling apart. So my body was trying to say, please, you got to wake up. You can't keep pursuing this weird goal of having tons and tons and tons of money, cash, possessions, shoes, cars. It just wasn't making me happy. So it's almost like the anti-American dream, because I think happy now is the new rich. And that's kind of what I figured out. But the body is the most important vessel. And as we've known coming up over the last, let's say 10 years or so, people are becoming more and more aware of which part of the body is related to what's going on with you.
Absolutely.
So part of the coaching first thing I always ask everybody is, how do you feel? That's your physical, when we get into all these questions on the physical, I call it the quintessence, the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. But on the physical, one of the key questions is, do you hurt? And if you say yes, where? Because when it's shoulders, and mine was always shoulders and arms, it's about burden. It's about carrying too much weight. And I always felt like I had a 40-year-old man on my shoulders. Good guy, but I still had the heaviness and the weight. I literally felt like someone was sitting on me. And so I literally had to have shoulder surgery in order to, fix what was going on for so long, and carrying the children and carrying people and being also way over the top on codependent, always trying to prove my value by serving others. And it just became out of control. So you can use the body, and very often, I think once, we know at the gut level, there's actually, the gut is one of the very first areas to develop in the fetus. And it's one of the areas where they actually have cells very similar to like the brain cell. When they say your gut knows, your gut actually is processing intellectual information for you all the time. And I was also sucking down medication. So
it's so funny you said that.
Because you're so depressed. I mean, that's so I had so many signs. I was not listening to any of them, April. I was on autopilot.
Right. I get it.
Not stop.
I get it. But funny you said that you went to the doctor. I did the same thing. My hips were popping, my knees hurt. I had migraines. I went to the doctor. They couldn't find anything. I was 37 years old.
Wow.
36. And what we can't talk about, our body will show in its state. And that's what you and I went through. So early in your book, you spoke about these shortcuts and you applied them daily, those 14 tips every day, religiously.
Every day.
Okay. So we spoke about, we both know this, that we carry with us traumas from our childhood. So how would one release issues from childhood that are currently holding them back from their true expression of themselves and in their life?
Well, this is something that they've known since the 70s, when they started child development psychology. And it came up at that time, 60s and 70s, where they were finding that there's certain phases of development. One of them, even Piaget, goes back and says that the concrete stage of development goes all the way through 12, maybe a little later too. And that means everything that comes in, that is, no matter what it is, it comes in as fact.
Right.
So when you're really young, you're absorbing all this information. So if someone says, you're stupid, or what's the matter with you, or why can't you ever do this right, or why don't you help? You don't care about me, whatever it might be. And we don't mean to do that, but authority figures and parents, teachers, anyone else, it could be coaches that are making these kind of statements. The kids can't say, coach is having a bad day. He didn't mean to say I'm the worst guy on the team. He really cares about me. I mean, they don't have the ability to do that at all. So all of us, unfortunately, are walking around with these messages that got stuck. And I like to call them bruises. And some of the bruises are, I say, appetizer size, and some of them are like entree size, and some of them are like little extra desserts that got added on and they get kind of multiplied. And so one of the best ways that I found, in order for me to move on, because my heart was so hurt from I had a really difficult childhood and really, really bruised up. In fact, I think I had a giant entree size menu of things that were hurting me. And so I had to go in and get rid of those in order to move forward. And that's how, the funny thing is, and here's the upside, once you actually do take a look at what these challenges are, what these issues are, the repetitive things that keep coming over and over in your life, once you look at them and see them, they're really of the same set, typically.
Right.
So one of mine was, being just lovable as I am, being enough. Right. Huge issue for me. And so one thing I found that's a great technique right now, it's tapping, EFT. Yes. And I do a different version of it. I have studied so many different programs and everything about spirituality, just like you, I'm sure. I still have books next to my bed, still lined up on ones I want to read, and always taking a new technique. So I came up with this kind of a cool secret sauce where you add tapping along with forgiveness work, along with 2 or 3 other Gestalt kind of processes. And I help people now, and it's one of my greatest joys in life is to literally like take someone's heart in my hands and get rid of a layer of bruising.
Yes.
So let me just give you an example. I've just had so many people come, and there's so many wonderful stories. But one in particular was a young lady that came to me, and she was from Fargo, and she had said, I was mom's little girl. Well, mom had passed, but in her whole childhood, she was the youngest. She was adorable, cute, curls, the whole thing. And mom always said, you're my good little girl. So her entire life became about being the good little girl.
Right.
So she was stuck in a job she hated. It's very similar, in kind of a similar field, when she had a evil, mean boss and was not treated well. And, and her name was Sally. And she was like, I just can't move on. I know that this is wrong, but I don't know what to do. So the first thing we did when we met is to get in there, and it's a similar process in tapping. Right. Anyone who knows EFT, you go in certain points, but we worked on this need to prove herself as being good by performing as the little girl, because unless she did what somebody else wanted, she was bad according to her. Well, we clear that up. It takes about 90 minutes. And at the end, she said, first of all, you're kind of floating because an entire level of heaviness gets removed. But then she calls me back like literally a week later, and she goes, you won't believe what happened. I'm like, try me. I've heard everything. Try me. She said, I just decided a week ago, she goes, I decided I can't handle it. I told my boss that this is not the right fit for me, that I wanted to take a period to exit, and she was going to transform. So together we worked on this whole new career for her, and she literally up and quit within 7 days because
Wow.
she couldn't tolerate the fact that she had been serving others to get approval and love. And consequently, she found out exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to go into nuclear medicine. She got herself into a program. I mean, she was a very action-oriented person.
Right.
By the time I'd give her an assignment, it would be done literally within like 2 hours. And she was just into it. This is what she wanted to do. She got herself into a program. She figured out how to create exactly the life that she loves. And she was deliriously happy. And then we went through all these other steps and learned about the 14 shortcuts. But she now she's on her way to probably within 2 years running an department in a hospital in Fargo.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And years and years of baggages unloaded by pure awareness and tools that can unload and stop the triggers going forward, correct?
Exactly.
So you mentioned something about pragmatic metaphysics. Tell me a little more about that.
Well, I like to, for me, part of metaphysics, and this is where the mainstream people who are just learning and kind of emerging with awareness and consciousness, sometimes metaphysics gets really into I'm going to say the woo-woo side.
Right.
No, really gets into, and I accept all that. I've learned all that. I've studied all that, but I come from the business side. I have a master's in marketing from Northwestern. So what I wanted to do is put the East and the West together,
right,
and to kind of make it a nice little kit, because I truly believe we're spiritual beings in a physical world. And so in order to work with our essence and who we came here to be, to follow our passion, to be truly happy, we need to manage and learn how to manifest in this reality. So a lot of what I do is I mix East and West together so that it's not only palatable, but it really looks at those 4 quadrants, the mental, right, emotional, spiritual, physical, all of equal weight. Because in a perfect world, let's just say there
right,
would be such a thing, all 4 would be rocking on all the time for all of us. We'd
right,
feel great. Emotionally, we'd feel loved, we'd feel expressed, we'd feel cared for. And then on the spiritual side, you would really have your intuition like with you and available to you daily and
all the
using
time.
all the time. And especially checking in right before you go to sleep is the time you're most aware,
right,
and most connected to your spiritual self. So that's the time when you can actually get some work done. You say, hey, I'd like to work on this. And then also, making sure that you're on track with your work and the passion area. And also, I like to say life's work. I think we have a lot of purposes. People say purpose, but I see that as kind of a bag full of things. I think we came here to do many things.
Oh, absolutely.
But to make sure you're on track with your life's purpose or your life's work and your passion.
Right,
those
your
are the
joys.
things that usually, your joy, what makes you happy.
What feeds your soul, because you're doing it all: acting, writing, business, healing. Those are both left and right side of the brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's a little crazy sometimes.
It is, but
it is crazy. But you know what? I love the fun kind of chaotic world. That's what feeds me. I think if I don't know what it's like to be bored, because I have so many things I'm dying to get to read, touch, experience, and
you're a multitasker. I think multi-level joy seeker, and you're exploring it all. You mentioned also multiple times in the book about the danger signs, and that when you're going down the path, it probably looks normal and okay, but something within you is telling you this is not okay. Something's wrong. Explain that.
Well, I like to think of it as your radar detector.
Yes.
And that we all have it.
Yes.
It's the part that starts to go beep, 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 beep. And sometimes it's really beeping loudly. And I believe that most of us in our society, especially in this culture, we're trained to ignore that.
Right.
Shut it down. Don't tell anyone how you feel. Don't express yourself. Go along with whatever's going on or whatever requirements are put in front of you. Because God forbid, if you said, that doesn't work for me, imagine the repercussion. So it's stuffing. Which has a lot to do, I think, with the fact that, I was overweight because the only thing I knew that I could get any affection from was food. Mm-hmm. And so stuffing the feelings. So if we really open up our sense of feelings and understand that they're there as just an information source.
Correct.
other trick is they always have a cycle. They always have a beginning, a middle, and an ending, but we usually lock it up right in the middle. That's what most people, because it feels uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm a pro at this too, and still working on it. But when something starts to feel uncomfortable, how do you process that? What can you do to allow it to have its space? Maybe feel bad. Maybe say, okay, here's the trigger that it's tied into. The easiest analogy that I think would help the listeners for me is I like to always go immediately back to, I kind of put it into the left brain a little bit and analyze it and say, okay, what's getting hit here? Because when you get that trigger hit about 3 times, what happens is I start to get anxious. I start to, I feel overwhelmed. And usually I wonder what's wrong with me. I go right to what did I do?
And then you want to stuff it.
Yeah, and then I want to stuff it or run away.
Yes.
Running away is good.
Yeah.
And I'll just use an example just from my own life. The one that got triggered very recently is rejection. And I was putting out all this information and I'm trying all these new things and going to expos and literally standing in the aisle trying to pull people into my booth. And I had one show that was great. Then the next show I felt like, what's wrong with me? I had super psychics on either side of me, and I'm very intuitive, and I do Akashic readings, but I'm not a super psychic. And so I was sitting here wondering what was getting hit that made me wonder what was I doing wrong. And then what happened is I'm like, oh wow, the rejection bell was getting rung. So I'm like, you know what? That's okay. That's just something that I'm working on right now. How do I still put myself out there, try all these different things, yet sometimes they work and sometimes they land and sometimes they fall flat on their face. And I have to do this with the grace and the understanding that, guess what? One of the rules, the 14 shortcuts, I'm not in anybody else's circle.
Right.
So I go back to my shortcuts and I'll say, okay, one of them is literally if you put your arms straight out like this, you've got about a foot past each hand and a foot on the top and a foot below. And that's the only part of your world that you really have to manage in this lifetime. So the fun part is I realized, oh wow, I'm trying to get other people to respond. It sounds crazy, but a lot of us try to do that. I really just had to worry about my circle. When I got back into that, I thought, all I want to do is help. If somebody will benefit, great. And then just to truly remember that it was just for me to enjoy the day.
Right. Because it's your journey.
Yeah, and it flipped everything overnight because I got back into, okay, what would kind of make me feel yummy right now? What kind of fun things can I do? So I ran over, I started shopping and checking out other people's stuff, and I just immediately flipped the energy. Good. Because that button had been pushed quite a bit, and I lost sight of what was actually really going on.
Well, I call that riding your wave, because the wave is not constantly coming forward or going back. So for me, when it's low tide, it's time for me to rest and plan. And then when it's high tide, it's when I'm in action and celebrating and just going out there. But it's like a heartbeat. It's like the wave. It'll pass. It's all temporary. Now, this is a sticky one. I know that you were also involved with somebody named Jeff, who was a manipulative alcoholic, classic codependency relationship, similar to mine. And so I wanted you to touch a little bit about that. How do you know if you're in a situation like that for our participants?
Well, that was one of the stories people liked the most from the book.
Yeah.
It's it was part of the book was about how also do you find your heart?
Yes.
When it's been locked away for so many years. I really didn't think I had one. I was going through the motions. I was taking care of my kids. I cared about them. But even with my relationships or in my interpersonal relationships, I'm not sure I really understood what it felt like to have an intimate, heartfelt relationship.
A healthy one
that is reciprocated. So I found Jeff because he was good looking and he drove a boat and he had like the wind in his hair and he was cute and he was smart. And so, and I was dating again at 40 and trying to figure out how do I unleash this heart and make it feel. Well, the funny thing is, and this is the part with a lot of codependent relationships, the feeling aspect of that is super high.
Super high.
Super high. Like the emotions are all over their hands and their feet. It's ooey gooey. It's like love, 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 crazy love. And that part feels good at first.
Yes.
I have never had that many compliments. I've never had anyone have that extreme emotion of sexy and fun and obsessed.
Yes.
So one of the first signals usually comes in that area of obsession. It's usually so over the top. And this just might be just going back to the wave that you were mentioning. Everything functions in the shape of a wave, so nothing lasts at that highest level forever, because I don't think we're here to do that. I think we're here to learn about balance. So one of the aspects of this excessive everything, the second part that really came up is that it was boundaryless.
Right.
This person was a beautiful, smart man, but he would take everything to the extreme. I mean, we'd be having a good time and it would be fun. All of a sudden he'd walk up he literally did this. He walked up on the stage once and he grabbed the microphone from a band that was kind of taking a little rapping session. They were going to rap and take a break. He took the mic and started singing Brown Eyed Girl.
Oh no.
And the band wasn't really comfortable with that, and the audience thought it was great, and I thought it was funny, but I had a little thing go off in my head like, yeah, okay, that might be, it's not yours. There's no boundaries to that.
Right.
He didn't really ask. So he would take everything to a super level of extreme, to the point where my life involved the police getting him out of jail, watching him basically after he said he was fine, because he really was very sick. He was very, very sick in his addiction. And I didn't understand that he wasn't able to have a healthy relationship. So it went to the point where I had to watch him completely go and almost kill himself, and almost kill himself right in front of me. And until I realized that this level of insanity. And the other thing, here's the other fun trick. If ever you hear your friends, the people who really care about you, and they're like, that sounds crazy. Officially crazy talk.
It probably is.
It is.
Yeah.
They're not
it
wrong.
Probably is.
You just can't see it. My love, love, love was so high that I couldn't even hear the crazy stuff I was saying about this experience. And I had a couple good friends say, I'm worried about you. You're this average hardworking woman. Why are you saying insane things about this man and trying to get enough cash, $2,000 in cash in 5 minutes to get him out of jail?
Right.
I mean, that sounds like a show. That's like the shows that we watch to entertain ourselves on some soap opera. All My Children is one that always comes to mind. I'm like, am I on All My Children? But that level of insanity, other people are reflecting back. Because the people who truly are caring for us in our tribe are always giving us honest information about where we're at. Sometimes it's good, sometimes we don't want to hear it, but they were right. Yeah. And so it took, of course, just like you, had to hit a rock bottom and almost get hurt and almost get physically injured and possibly have been hurt to the point where I would have not been able to raise my own children for me to finally stop.
I'm glad, because now you're here sharing your message with us.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things you get to look back and go, I needed that. Because I'd rather I had experienced it then than later on, where you would probably be swirling even worse. You know what I mean? Because I think it comes as whispers, then it's like you're running into walls next.
Right, but probably just as you have, I'm assuming you've had this similar experience. I got it though.
Yeah,
it was as if whatever weird rose-colored glasses I was wearing, they were taken off for good that day.
Yes.
And I can not only see it, I smell it, I sense it, and I can always tell if there is a level of addiction with someone I'm interacting with. I have an immediate awareness. So
it's spot on now.
I can, and I have great, and the other good news is I have great compassion for it, because I had to go through it. So a lot of the people that I work with, actually, I think we all have some addiction, to be honest with you. There's something. I'm addicted to gum. I admit it. I totally chew 24/7. If I have to write something, if people hear me chewing, they know I'm writing some very important thing.
Right.
And so we all have something that gets us through the day or whatever, little things, big things, whatever. But the good news is that I can actually bring it forward now, share, and help you some of the, I call it tap into healing, but use some of the healing techniques to take it down and to get to the core root. Because almost every person I've ever met like that has had, and they say there's trauma T1, T2, T3.
Right.
Guys have T3s. I mean, these people have had significant trauma. And if we can sometimes get and heal some of that, it really can lessen that and help them heal too as well.
Well, thank you for all that. I wanted to thank you for this time, and you have so much information to share. And so we're going to tell the participants that you have a gift for them if they follow your link during our promotional period for your 14 shortcuts to happy living, right? So I wanted to thank you, and I'm sure we'll stay in contact. And I wanted to thank the participants, because visit Dianne's website. You're going to have so much information there, and check out her book. She has lots of experiences with people who's had challenges and worked through them. So she has a lot to offer. I thank you again for your time. We'll be in touch soon. So is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, just make sure everyone goes to Dianne.net, Dianne, Dianne.net, and the book is called The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. I'm very lucky. I have like over 105 5-star reviews on Amazon. So the book is awesome. And also the link is to the 14 shortcuts. So get your 14 shortcuts, download it, start reading them, and use them every day. And if ever you're having a challenge, look at them and just see which one might be coming forward to me today, whether it's managing your wave, staying in your own circle, or learning how to actually understand and use your own radar detector. Those
right. Have that list on your hand, like at work and at home.
Exactly. Yes, right. Exactly.
Now your book, is that both in Kindle and paperback?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on Amazon. It's pretty much very available on the internet too.
Thank you, Dan. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Have a great day. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.